Now that the thread editor component is in place, we can move on with the thread update feature. We can use the editor inside the thread show page and switch between view and edit thread like we do with the user profile. To keep the components simple, we can create a new page component called thread edit. The idea is to pass this component the ID of the thread we are about to edit, and then make changes using the thread editor component and dispatch an action when save is hit. Since this component will be very similar to thread create, I will copy the whole component's code and paste it into our new file. In the heading, we can say editing and then the thread's title. Other than that, we don't need to change anything in the template. In the script, we don't need forum ID or the forum anymore. Instead, we need the ID and the thread we are editing. Because threads do not hold any content, we need to find the first post of the thread and grab its text property. We will use the posts property of the thread to get the post at the index of 0. This will tell us the ID of the first post. Then, we just want its text. Let's pass these to the thread editor and make it dynamic. First, we should add the props, text, and title. Now, over in the thread editor component, we should add the props text and title. These can be strings with a default value of an empty string. Next, we should rename the local data properties. We can go with active title and active text, or just wrap both under an object like thread or form. I'll go with wrapping the properties as it solves the collision between the prop and data names, while at the same time allowing us to reference all the form values with a single variable, that is, this.form. Now, we can assign the props values to the data properties. Since both props have a default value, this will work in any case. Also, in the save method, we have to update the payload to reference the text and the title values stored now in the form. We'll just spread the whole form into the emit event in order to accomplish this. Cool. That should do it for the thread editor. Let's go back to the thread edit page. In the save method, we get a title and a text that we will pass to the update thread action that we will soon create. Here, we will also have to pass the ID of the thread that we are updating. We have the ID in the thread ID prop. We can actually rename it to just ID since we are inside the thread edit component already. Then, once the update is done, it's nice to redirect the user to the thread page. Let's create the update thread action. Our payload here is the title and the text and the ID. In order to update the thread and the post, we can commit the set thread and set post mutations. But since we just have the title and the text, and we don't have the whole objects, we have to find the thread and the post in the state. We can easily find the thread using the ID from the payload. Once we get the thread, we can find the post using the thread's posts property and get the post with the index at 0. For the thread, we want to change the title with the new one and then pass it to the setThread mutation. Remember that we can't say thread.title equals title because we will actually update the thread immediately inside the action. So we can create a new object called newThread that will also include the old thread's properties, along with the past title. Here, using the spread operator, we are overriding thread's title. Next, we can do the same for post. Once we have these, we can commit the corresponding mutations. Whoops, I forgot to spread post here instead of thread. There is still one more thing we need to account for in the setPost and setThread mutations. So far, we have only used them for setting new posts and threads, and not updating any existing ones. Written as is, they will always push a new item to post or threads in our state. Let's make it so that if the post or thread included in the payload has an ID already, we look for that in the state and update the resource accordingly. In order to know if the posts already exist in the state, we'll use findIndex. Then, if the ID was provided on the post, and the post does exist at a particular index in the state, that is, findIndex returns a -1, then we'll update the post at that index. Otherwise, we'll push the new post as we already were doing. Now, let's do the same for setThread. Finally, back up in the update thread action, let's future-proof our action by making it async. Lastly, let's return the updated thread. Now, let's create a route for editing the threads. I'll just copy the route record from thread create and change out a few things. One thing I noticed about our thread create route record is that we did misspell forum as form. We'll fix that real quick. Because we've used name routes, we don't have to worry about changing any of the links throughout the site. This route will still just work. Nice. Let's change out a few things in our new route record. For the path, we no longer need the form ID since it's already known. What we need instead is the thread ID. And it's also nice to append the word edit after the thread's ID. We'll change the name and the component used here. And then finally, we'll import the component. Great. Let's try it out in the browser. Oops, it looks like we have an issue. we forgot to update the title and the text prop on our vModels in the thread editor. Let's do that real quick. VS Code is smart enough to tell us that we can't be mutating a prop. See the squiggly red line? That should fix it right up. Alright, let's edit our thread. Great, it works.